Hey everybody, my name is Jim Shelby. I'm excited today to be joined for Real Conversations with Lori Sharpsteen. So I'm going to just rattle this off and correct me, but realtor,
Yes.
ex-big box retail superstar,
Correct?
mother,
Yes.
grandmother,
Yes.
blonde hair.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, my
I got,
hairdresser, she'll say yes.
I got most of it down pat, but I'm excited to have you joining us. And you're one of our biggest advocates here. I just saw we had a customer come in and you were doing a great job selling NexCore. I didn't even have to say anything, and I appreciate that so much.
Well, it's all absolutely what I believe, and I do that everywhere because this place has such a unique vibe and culture that I think is so supportive to entrepreneurs and allows them to be able to sort of feed off of what each other are doing in a way that's really unique in the St. Louis marketplace. Plus, it's a really cool building, even though it's Google instead of Alexa. I think I said that out loud. But I like all of the technology pieces.
Edit that out. Google first.
But it really, for people who are just starting businesses or just starting to get out on their own, something that we had talked about earlier is that can be a real lonely road.
Yes.
And you can really start, if you're doing it home in your home office, you really start to doubt yourself. And here, everybody is so supportive of what everyone else is doing that I see them instead inspiring each other. It's just a cool atmosphere to be a part of.
That was really nice of you to say. And we wanted that. So it's kind of like as you say it, it's a little validation of what we had hoped to accomplish. So I appreciate that. But I'd like to share today, I'd like you to share today a little bit more about you. Because you and I have talked, like sporadic little pieces of the Lori Sharpsteen puzzle have come together for me. But share if you would, and I rattled off some titles, but who are you? What makes you tick? Those kind of things are what I want to go into today. So let's start off with, who are you? Tell us a little bit about your family. And
I am born and bred originally from Chicago. Moved here to the St. Louis marketplace about 30 years ago. Then started having kids, got married, and ended up, much more ingrained in this community than I ever thought I would. Honestly, I thought I would be here for a year or two and then probably head off to California or somewhere west.
You look like a California girl to me.
Really?
You do.
Must be the blonde hair.
It probably is.
Whatever that is. But I've come to really appreciate the culture and the ingenuity that I see here in St. Louis. I love the amenities, particularly having small kids, having the zoo, there's tons of things to do that I really ended up loving St. Louis a lot more than I thought I would. So then I used to work, honestly, you're going to be surprised, as a menswear tailor. So I was a tailor for a menswear tailor.
Menswear tailor.
So if you bought a suit at Neiman Marcus or Saks Fifth Avenue and they called somebody to chalk your suit, that used to be me.
Oh.
So I did that avenue of the business of sewing, and then got into costume design, and I had a home-based business called Battlefields and Ballrooms, where I designed and constructed historical costumes.
Really?
So got involved in a lot of the creative aspects of it, and then got married and moved all the way out to Rolla, which is a whole nother very small town, so a whole nother world, and decided at the time I was rehabbing a house with my husband and was looking for something a little bit social.
Okay.
So was looking for an avenue outside of the house. And a Lowe's store opened up, and I took a job just as a temporary cashier for the summer. And as I started working for them, what happens is the management starts to say, well, wow, we need somebody who can do this. And I'd be like, well, yeah, I can do that. And then that keeps going and that keeps going. So then 17 years later, before I left the company, I'd spent my last 5 years as a store manager there. But through the course of all that, you become, I learned a tremendous amount. I absolutely learned how to react to just about every emergency or every contingency you can imagine. But you start to lose your own identity and what's important to you as you become sort of the face of another of another entity.
Sure.
So about a year and a half ago, I decided that my kids were getting older, starting to have grandkids. I wanted to really be able to be much more involved in my community and support the things that were important to me. So I left the corporate world behind and moved into real estate.
So I have a question for you. So I'm a retail convert myself. Spent a lot of years working in retail.
Which part? Big box, small box?
Big box.
Big
so
box.
I did my first real job ever was Best Buy. I did 3 tours of duty there.
Okay.
And,
It feels like a tour of duty because it's a whole culture that takes over your whole life.
yeah, and I still love my favorite store to go into to this day is Best Buy. Love going in there. I'm a big Lowe's fan too.
Okay.
So when you said you spent time at Lowe's, do you find yourself when you go in there noticing if customers aren't being waited on and you like feel the itch? You're
All
like,
the
this
time.
isn't great, you're fixing product and
Yeah, I'm always like straightening up a set or looking at an end cap and saying, oh my God, I can't believe that's half empty. And I do end up still, it doesn't matter what big box store I'm in, I must look like a retail person.
Because they ask you questions.
Yeah, because they ask questions, or you'll hear somebody going past and they're like, wow, I wonder where, and I'm like, yeah, it's over there 2 aisles over.
Aisle 12.
Right, it's right over there. Or particularly if I'm in a home improvement store, because you see people in home improvement, the plumbing aisles are always the ones that employees would avoid, because that's where all the customers are, and the problems are always kind of crazy and screwy there. So I'd be walking past and I'd hear somebody say, well, but what do I need for this fitting? And I need a P-trap. What is a P-trap? So I end up stopping anyway and saying, no, this is what it is. This is what you need. What are you trying to do? You need dielectric unions for your water heater, whatever it is.
I hear all the time from my wife, you don't work here. Let's
Yes.
go. You don't work here.
Yes. Well, and my kids, certainly, your kids were probably the same way. My kids hated it.
Right.
Because it doesn't matter, because I will talk to anyone, anywhere, and they're like, seriously, Mom, can we just go? Do you really have to explain to one more person how to wire a switch?
I totally know that my son Nicholas is watching that, relating to everything you just said. That's funny. For me, it was a difficult decision to leave retail because it's a lifestyle too.
It is.
It's like I was thoroughly convinced that Tuesday and Wednesday is the same as Saturday and Sunday. As long as you got 2 days off in a row, it didn't matter.
Right.
But when you have Saturday and Sunday off, it changes everything. Or when you control your schedule, it changes everything. So what was the biggest transitional thing for you? Because you don't get your Sundays off.
No.
But you get control.
Yeah.
And that's something you didn't have before.
That's a very good point, because one of the things that I really enjoy the most now about being self-employed is that I can actually, it seems like there used to be a big fallacy about work and life balance, right? You're at work and you should spend X amount of hours at work, and then if you're not at work, you should not be thinking about work and you should be doing other things. And that there should be a percentage of your time spent in both. And I was never really comfortable with that, because I was always thinking about work, or at work I would always be thinking about family, things would always bleed in together. Now I get to actually live the way I think I should live, which means I'm always in touch with all of it. So, this morning before coming here, I was at a doctor's appointment with my 14-year-old daughter and can't hear, but I'm texting with clients about negotiating a contract, talking with my oldest daughter about her husband's desire to be a home inspector. To me, now my business is just ingrained as a part of the rest of my life.
Right.
It's not something completely separate. And I get to focus it on the things that I find to be most important. To me, it's just a much more fluid way to live than that old, I'm scheduled, because it's retail, right? So I'd be scheduled from 5 to 4 or 12 to 11, 5 days a week, but you never left when you were scheduled off, right?
Right.
Did you ever
And you're always in early.
You're always in early, you're always out late, you're always taking phone calls, but there was always that guilt of, well, I really should be leaving, or I really, shouldn't be taking these customer phone calls while I'm on vacation driving through Utah. Now I get to just say, that just is part of who I am. But then I also get to, on a Tuesday afternoon, go hang out at the park with my grandson and not feel like I should be somewhere else doing something.
Yeah, I totally understand. I did, when we were talking about our strategy for 2019 for NexCore, and it was approaching the end of 2018, and somebody said we should write a blog. So I'm like, I don't even know what to write about in a blog. But I wrote my first blog on something very similar to what you were talking about. I called it Day Interrupted. It was, my son was at school, and he called me from school and said I need to be picked up. It wasn't necessarily the best phone call that I've gotten, but I picked him up, and it was closer to bring him here than it was to bring him home. So I'm like, well, we've got to eat anyway. So we went and ate, and I didn't feel guilty about getting back, but right outside of the restaurant we came out, there were Lime scooters.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And I'm like,
Did you?
all right, let's do it.
Did you?
Yeah, we were
was
about
it?
3 miles from here, so we
Okay.
rode from there to here. What I didn't realize is that there's no sidewalks across the bridge on gravel.
yeah.
So we're like going down gravel.
And-
But I didn't feel guilty about where I had to be or what I had to be doing. We just did it. And when I came back here, I was on fire. I was ready to take on the world, and my posture was different because it was about being authentically who I
Right.
am. And I think that's, what
Yeah.
we were talking about. It's not what you do, it's who you are.
Right.
And there's a big difference.
Yeah.
But a 17-year career with one company, that's got to be a weird transition.
It is, and it was, because I started at the most basic level that you could. I started at like $7.50 an hour, just saying, oh, I just want to be able to be a cashier and just talk to people and,
Right.
go back and do my other home-based business. And of course, after just a year or so, that fell completely by the wayside because being able to be involved in developing sales and developing a sales plan, but the biggest element of it was the people part. As I was able to keep moving forward in my career, then I had better opportunities to be able to help employees maybe realize a career path that they never thought that they could achieve.
Sure.
So I can't count the number of people that, they would say, well, I can't be a manager. Why not? And then, 2 years later, they're a manager somewhere and they're making more money than they ever thought they would, and they're living a lifestyle that they didn't think that they could, just because we were creative about how to get them there. And now I get to be able to do that exact same thing, but with houses and investing in real estate as a vehicle and as a tool instead of the career and the job with just that company. Because when you're doing that for a company, for me at least personally, there's not much more disappointing than helping somebody up into a career path and then having to sit in front of them with a script that tells them that the company's decided to restructure and now they don't have a job, or things are just completely flipped a different direction. So now I get to control all of those parts of it myself and how much I invest in which avenues.
That's really cool. I realized when I was in retail management that I went back to my roots. So I started at $7.50 an hour, and then when you're salaried and running the store, you're back to $7.50 an hour.
Yes.
Just 280 hours a week is how it works out.
Right.
No, but so why real estate though? Was it because of the home improvement connection that it just felt like a natural transition?
I think that was a big part of it. I've rehabbed houses myself. I've done a lot of repair and remodel work myself, plus having worked with a lot of contractors. I'm uniquely able to be able to tell a good job from a bad job. And my kids, my family, we're all, junkies of all of those shows, right? I mean, my 14-year-old, when she was 8, used to absolutely have to watch like the Fix Or Flop and the bathroom remodel.
Flip or
one.
Flop?
Yes,
Yes.
Flip or Flop, I think it is. The ones where the ones where they just did a bathroom or just did and she would go through and look at house listings for fun. And so
When she was 8.
When she was 8. So, and my older 2 daughters are, really handy and really involved in it. My oldest one is a landscape designer, so still involved in that industry. So it was also a natural extension of just what interests me and what I enjoy doing. combined with being able to take all of the business knowledge that I gained from working at Lowe's and to be able to design my own marketing plans and my own business plans, and determine, the direction of the business myself. So it was just a very natural transition for me. And certainly, anytime you make a big change like that, there are going to be surprises, right? So for me, there are plenty of things that I thought I would like about the business more, that I thought that I would really enjoy being part of a bigger brokerage and a bigger office and would engage in that more, and I don't very much at all. I find that I'm much more independent and prefer to be more out on my own. So it's just interesting too to be able to take that time. I intentionally committed the first year to just kind of explore all of the different options and practice some different things, like the seminars here.
Right.
I love doing those seminars, and fortunately my lending partner does too. So that's why now we're meeting this week to talk about how we're going to expand on those and do those differently.
And the feedback has been really fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
The people that have attended have said really nice things.
Yeah, that's what I've heard as well. And one of the things I've learned is, I am at the very tail end of being a baby boomer. So I'm at that group, I'm in that age group that always talks about like those millennials and why don't they know more about how to do things. But I have kids who are millennials, and I know that they don't fit necessarily those molds. But it's funny because I was having lunch with my 23-year-old and my 14-year-old yesterday, and they were both saying, well, yeah, we took this class in school that was supposed to be, like facts, like how to live your life.
Right.
And they spent 2 weeks learning how to balance a checkbook. Well, nobody balances checkbooks anymore. I mean, that's mostly done online and through your apps. They didn't learn anything about insurance. They didn't learn anything about how to buy a house. They didn't learn it. So there were lots of things that they just didn't know.
Right.
But that they wanted to know. They just were never exposed to it. For us, for Rob and I doing these classes, now it's kind of an opportunity to be able to say, okay, if you want to know something, tell me what you want to
Ask,
know. Just
right.
tell me what the topic is, and I'll find you an expert, and we'll talk about it. It's in my best interest as a baby boomer. At some point in time, I'm going to be retired, and they're going to be running the world. So I'd really rather have them feel comfortable and know and be supportive of that instead of what I see in a lot of my peers, which is being more critical.
Right.
And with that whole, people like to say, well, somebody should do this. They should do this. Well, hold up a mirror. Who's they?
Yeah, who's going to help them do that?
Right. And there are plenty of things that they are teaching me. That they teach me about technology, about a whole different way of looking at the world and how to live. For my generation, success meant you had a big fancy car and you had a big house, and maybe you couldn't afford to go anywhere because you had this big house to support you, that you
Right.
had to support and you had to take care of. And what I find in my kids' generations is that that's completely flipped. They live a much more simpler life. They prefer to. They have a lot more flexibility.
But it doesn't seem like money's a huge motivator.
Yeah.
Ironically enough.
Yeah.
So tell us about, because I've heard you've thrown out different ages, and so tell me about your family life today. Who all makes up your family?
Okay, so that would be my 3 daughters. So Nick, Sam, and Charlie.
Okay.
My 3 girls. Nick is 29, married. She's a landscape designer, and has a 3-year-old son, my grandson Theo, who is just a holy terror all over the place. Absolutely all little boy. It's adorable. And she and her husband Chris also have how is Rosie now? Like 5 weeks old.
We can edit that and get the correct if that's wrong.
Yeah,
let
no,
us know.
Yeah, no. Then there's my 23-year-old daughter, Sam. She lives here in St. Louis, so she's doing the retail thing. So she works for a small retail lingerie store, actually, in West County Mall, and going to college one class at a time, and just kind of figuring out life. We're figuring out what happens when your car doesn't pass inspection, and you have to replace ball joints, and you have to decide, do I want to keep this car and replace it, or working through all of those things. Then Charlie, my 14-year-old, is still in high school freshman. Absolutely going to take over the universe at some point. The straight A student, very obsessive about it. If she didn't have a 4.0, I think the world would just self-destruct. But very in band, and she does marching band, but just very much into learning and traveling and history and some other things. But other than that, it's them, the 2 grandkids, and me.
Okay, so you're by yourself.
Yes, I'm single.
Gotcha. So,
Yeah.
So I was about to clarify that.
Yes.
So how long have you been single?
That's been 2 years now.
So right around the same time that you decided to make the career shift.
Yeah, it was really probably all kind of involved.
At the same time?
Yeah, at the same time. I was, living in Rolla, wanted to get back here to the city.
So
back
you were
here
still
close
in
to
Rolla?
Riolos. Yeah.
You were there for 17 years?
Mm-hmm. Now, I was based there for 17 years. Now, as you know, in retail, if you want to move up,
You got to move around.
you got to move around. So my ex-husband is now retired, but he was a psychology professor at MST at the university down in Rolla. So he would stay there at home base with our youngest daughter, and also with the middle one when she was still living with us. And I relocated more around the St. Louis marketplace still. So I worked in Kirkwood, I worked in Columbia for a while, then I managed a store in Lake St. Louis.
That Columbia is you got to go over to almost up to St. Louis and then across, right?
Yeah, well, you can go up through from Raleigh, you can go up through Jefferson City and then up, but it's a long hike. So we were that 2-household family for probably 3/4 of our marriage, actually.
Oh, wow. So you were separated before you were separated.
Right. Yeah, we were separated but still married and still
Coexisting?
Yeah.
Understood. So a lot of times when somebody goes through career change,
Mm-hmm.
transitional things, lifestyle change, there's things that suffer. And and if you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to, but what for you suffered the most during this transition?
Probably what I missed the most was the everyday interaction with a large group of people in that culture, and then suddenly being, sort of on my own, and I have to figure out how to fill in those gaps. And certainly, probably more of that. I probably spent more of my time now between the business. It's all the business and my family.
Right.
Now, over the course of the last year or so, I started traveling a lot more too, which is something that I enjoy, and that was part of my plan as well. That I wasn't able to do as much of it when I was married, and certainly not working retail, right?
Right.
Could only take 10
Not without
consecutive.
permission.
No, well, you could only take 10 consecutive days off. So I took a trip last year to Greece and was gone for 2.5 weeks. I could have never done that as a store manager before. So now I'm able to do a lot more of that. So I haven't really thought about it that way, about what else has suffered, because so much for me in that time has improved. I feel that my relationships with my kids have improved because I now get to be there on a regular basis.
Sure.
For all of them in a way that you can't be when you're in a big box, in that retail environment and working so many hours.
So I want to speak for a second, because you put out an aura, a very positive aura. You're always looking sharp, you're always on, you're engaged.
That's very sweet of you.
But it's very true. I wouldn't say it if it wasn't. Not on camera anyway. But you really seem to have your stuff together. And one of the things that I always want to ask somebody when you give off such a positive appearance is, you obviously have gone through something to get where you are. And there may be somebody that looks at you and goes, man, she's really got her stuff together. I wish I could be her, become her, things like that. And I think you present that role model type approach to people. So what would you say to maybe someone that's in the life that you were in? They're working the crazy hours, 8 to 8,
Right.
Monday through Sunday, and they're
Christmas holiday season.
yeah, you know, when I left retail, not to segue back to me, but when I left retail, they said, is there anything you miss? I said, yeah, not missing Thanksgiving,
Yes.
not missing
Yes.
Christmas, not missing all of those things that I so miss.
Yeah, Black Friday's so different.
Yeah, well, what about people that are where you are, struggling, or where you were, struggling to get there? What words of wisdom or what advice do you have for those people that maybe are on the fence of jumping into something new, or maybe you're scared to jump to something new? What would you say?
First, I would say just breathe. Just take a moment and breathe and realize whatever decision you make, the world's going to keep spinning. Things are going to still happen, and it's okay to make mistakes. One of the things that's really been interesting as I transition through this year is that, you know, we all we set a lot of goals for ourselves, and, you know, to-do lists and task lists, and then at the end of the week, sometimes I'll look at it and go, man, and I focus on what I didn't get done. And instead, you know, life is all choices. Every moment, every day is a choice. So you get to pick if you want to exude positive energy and be part of a positive environment, or if you want to focus on the negatives. And it's just find in every day what it is that you liked about what you did, what it is that you learned, and then forgive yourself for the things that you didn't feel that you accomplished. Typically, you're the only one who knows that. I assign my own task list. So at the end of the day, if I say, oh my God, I should have made, 5 more phone calls, I should have done this. Well, you know what? I'm the only one who set that list. And maybe I didn't plan it appropriately. So make sure that you really recognize that you have to sometimes forgive yourself. And when you do that, and then allow yourself to be more open to what's going on around you. If you focus on the positive things and learning about other people, learning about their business, learning about their lives, then all of those things motivate you and your business and your change. And you see that, okay, other people are doing this. This really is not that, it's not that scary.
Right.
It seems that way in the moment. And it seems that way when you're paying, your mortgage and when you're writing out your bills and you're figuring out the finances. But if you just stop for a moment and just breathe and recognize that you get to choose your next step. So you have the right to do that. And just make the choice that feels right to you. And recognize later, it's easy to go back and say, I should have done this, I should have done that. Just say, you know what, I made the best decision in the moment based on the information I had, and move on. But just, find other people, other energetic people, and spend your time around people that make you feel good, around people who are positive. Don't get lost in the negativity of Facebook and all the, everybody who likes to jump on all the. You get to choose how you spend your time and how you spend your energy. And how you spend it builds on itself.
All right, I wanna wrap up. I want to ask you a couple questions. These are just off the cuff.
Okay.
Questions. The one I ask everybody. You may have heard me say this before, but you're not from St. Louis originally.
I am not.
So here's the question: Mozzarella or Provolone?
Oh, mozzarella.
See, that's how I know you're not from here.
Oh my God.
All right.
Oh my God. Yeah, I'm from Chicago. So we do pizza a little
One
different.
crust or two.
Yeah, yeah, a good double-decker pizza. You ever had a double-decker one stand? Oh my God. Or deep dish pizza, always.
And so you're from Chicago originally. So Cardinals or Cubs?
It would be Cubs, but really Bears. So, meaning football is much more my sport than baseball is.
So not only do you pick a team that isn't here, but you pick a sport that isn't here.
Not here. I know.
The XFL is coming though.
I know. I can't wait.
Yes,
I can't wait.
I'm gonna get season tickets. We should go to a
Really?
game.
Oh my God, yes. I'm going to remind you of that.
I will. I'm gonna put the deposit down. It's $50 deposit. You can't go wrong
Oh
with that.
wow. Yeah, that's not bad.
So not like the Rams PSLs that are no good now.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Negative. Focus on the positive.
right? So I want you to, in one word, define yourself.
Inspired.
Very good. I don't know that I would
Pick
come
that
up with
one.
that, but I think
Yeah.
that's probably the right one. So, is that on the bottle watch, by the way?
It is.
It is beautiful.
Oh,
It
thank
caught
you.
my eye 3 times.
Oh, thank you.
So,
That was a Christmas gift.
oh, to yourself or from
No,
someone?
from someone else.
Nice. We won't ask that on camera. So your biggest advantages, your biggest challenges we've already identified. So what is the biggest goal, the biggest thing that you're looking forward to in your real estate career in the future? And then I'm gonna fade out and let you say whatever else you want to say as we close out the interview.
Wow, whatever else I want to say.
Whatever else you want to say.
Yeah, that's a pretty broad subject. So my goals for my real estate career is to be able to build I do eventually want to build a team or a brokerage, something that my kids can potentially become involved in as well. It's something that is, I like working in and around the city. I like rehab properties. I like the energy and the vibe of taking older structures and revitalizing them. And I am, I guess, if I had to really pinpoint it, I like to live my life and my business as an advocate of human potential. I think there is so much that we are capable of, and that, just when you look around at buildings, at businesses, and you think about the energy and what did it take for the very first person to do something like that? What did it take for the first person to build an arch for a bridge? And whatever was wired in that person's brain is wired in all of our brains still now. So as you look around, there is so much potential for people to be able to grow and learn and change our whole culture and our world, that finding ways to help support that is key to what I want my business life, my personal life, my kids to be able to do.
Very cool. I don't know that I could have asked for a better end than that you want to be an advocate for human potential. Mm-hmm. That is amazing. If there's anything else you want to say it, but I think you just nailed it.
Yeah, no, I can't think of anything. Thank you very much for your time and attention today. I appreciate it.
All right, Lori, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate everyone watching, and we'll see you next time on Real Conversations.